Hello everybody, and welcome back to Animal Crossing New Leaf. Welcome Amiibo! Today, we have filled out our letters. Okay, bit awkward, but whatevs. If you want to change your image, you should try my Certified Popularity Growth Plan. It's totally foolproof. Simply pose all cool wearing this. You'll be it for sure. Okay, what do you got for me, Gabby? What are you thinking? I mean, it's not bad, but it's summer now, so you'll be able to play outside all day, every day, but don't let your studies fall by the wayside. I haven't been in school forever. An anatomical model. I feel like that should go into our basement. I feel like that fits the basement pretty well. So I'm going to put that in the basement really quick. Trying to think of things to ramble about today. Today is EDF day, so like EDF. By the time this comes out, I'll have probably already yeah, he fits there. I'll probably have already done my stream, so like you guys can check back for the stream VOD by the time this comes out. God, I'm excited. It's literally like less than 24 hours away. I am excited. Assuming I didn't math wrong, which I suppose I could literally check now, because like I just need to go to its store page on Steam, which I can do literally while recording. It's not that hard. Yeah. At time of recording, it is 19 hours away. Ah. You hear that, Pete? EDF is coming out really soon for me. It's already out by the time this comes out. EDF is out. EDF 6 is out. Busy delivering mail this morning. Yeah, you should be busy playing Earth Defense Force 6, Pete. That actually reminded me. I saw a thing yesterday that really frustrated me because, like... Okay. It was someone who does clearly kind of understand Earth Defense Force, but also someone who clearly doesn't understand Earth Defense Force. So, the Earth Defense Force games have never been graphical masterpieces. Ever. None of them have been. There's a reason for that. And that's because they've always had destructible buildings. They've always had massively large amounts of enemies to be fighting. If they were graphical masterpieces pushing the technology of the day to its fullest extent, they wouldn't be able to have all of that. They wouldn't be EDF anymore. Like, so yeah, EDF 6, graphically, I mean, it doesn't look bad. I'm not saying it looks awful, but like, it does look like it's from a generation or two ago. Glad this wasn't the money rock. I just noticed that rose there. Like, it doesn't look bad. It looks like it, you know, would run on hardware from a decade ago, and that's a good thing. That's what we should be wanting out of games, because visuals aren't everything. Like, being a technological marvel is all fine and good until no one can actually play your game. Alan Wake 2. You know... When there are people with 4090s struggling to play your game at a good resolution, at a good frame rate, you know there's a problem. And, like, the arguments this guy was using was basically like, oh, but you know that, like... there's only going to be like 5 or 6 maps. It's like, yeah, but they're going to be big-ass maps. And each mission's going to use a different part of them. Because that's just how EDF is. That's how it's always been. They make the most out of the least. But you know what has, like, one single map and everyone goes gaga over it? Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Yeah, it has some micro dungeons here and there, but those are... A lot of them are just, here's a single puzzle we would have normally put in a larger dungeon or just somewhere in the world, but now you have to watch a cutscene to get to it. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing in the way of, you know, Breath of the Wild. I'm just saying, like, that sort of complaint can apply to literally every game ever. Like, Star Ocean 2 has 2 main distinct areas and a few dungeons. It's still an amazing game. You don't need hundreds of distinct areas to make a game good. You need to use what you have to its fullest. Having a lot of, like, micro areas that serve no major purpose other than just being, this is a mission, you know. Perfect Dark reuses the same maps a lot. You return to the same areas a lot. Because that's just, and it's just a smart use of what you've made. Oh, Kurlos wants something, probably the Sapphire. Hey, cool guy, didn't you tell me you wanted to get your hands on a spunky knit shirt? Did I? I don't think I want that, Kurlos. I'll take it, but I don't think I wanted that. I'm not wearing it. Hey, punk. We're gonna talk about, wanna chat? Hey, Schmoopy, I keep hearing people say you're totally a flower fan. I'm way jealous you're in the center of attention right now. It's supposed to be my job. Well, then get water and flowers. Maybe she put those flowers there thinking I wouldn't walk past them. I see what you're up to, Bella. But, like, there's so many amazing games that reuse assets, that reuse areas. That, like, that's not a negative. And then it's like, oh, you know, someone was pointing out, like, oh, EDF has literally... EDF 6 has, I think, something like 1,600 and some odd different weapons, and they're like, yeah, but that's not really true, because, like, there's always, like, a higher rarity version. It's like, yeah, but at least in my experience, outside of a few cases, the higher level version of something does generally still act at least slightly different from the lower level version. An easy example of, like, a weapon from EDF 5 that I can draw upon is the Minion Buster. The original Minion Buster rifle is a fully automatic assault rifle. You then unlock the Minion Buster 3. I think it's like 3 or 3 rounds, something like that. It's a 3-round burst Minion Buster. So, semi-auto 3-round burst instead of fully automatic. Then you next unlock one that's fully semi-auto. Then you go back to a full auto, but with tighter spread than the initial one had. Then, you know, there's progression. It's not just, it's the same weapon but higher stats. There's literally, like, a progression that happens. You feel the progression. It feels like the technology is simply getting better. You know. But, like, nah, it's totally a bad thing. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if that person would try to argue that, like, an RPG is bad if it doesn't just give you the ultimate version of all of your spells immediately, because why would you ever use fire when Fireguh exists? I mean, come on. It's like, well, because you don't have Fireguh from the very start. Like, maybe that would be why? You know. I love how I always go to a Final Fantasy example. Ooh, I want money. Now to carefully get over to, retail without walking past villagers. I need to go to the museum first. Still need to be careful. I don't want them taking my butterfly unless they want to pay for it. There's a villager over... No, that's Pete. I was supposed to say there's a villager, but no, it's just Pete. It's Metal Gear Solid now. I was almost noticed. The bushes saved me. Well, the flowers saved me. But, like... It just annoys me when someone who clearly doesn't understand why a game is fun tries to argue that no one else should find it fun because they don't. It's like, well, maybe you're just missing the point of the game. Like... I mean, like, quite honestly, I love the EDF formula. Especially because, like, just playing through the game, if you were to sit someone completely brand new down to EDF, like, you sit them down with EDF 5, you get them to play through the entire campaign, and then ask them how many maps there are in the game. Their response is probably going to be, I don't know, 20, 30? Like, there's a lot, because a lot of the missions don't use the entire map. You've never seen the entirety of a lot of those maps, at least unless you've really sat down and looked around and, like, you know, same with, like, the weapons. You'd be like, oh, well, you know, how many different weapons are there? They'd be like, ah, shit, man, thousands. Like, because as they were playing through the game, they'd be seeing, oh, this is like this, but it's not quite that. You know. And that's just good. That's fun. It gives you a real sense of progression as you play through the game. The caveat of that is they can't be playing Air Raider, because the Air Raider is a lot of the same things over and over and over again, because there's only so many ways you can call in artillery support, or call in bomber support. You know, there's only so many ways you can place a dumpster that heals you. You know, I forgot to check my turnip prices. So, like, the Air Raider, yeah, the Air Raider's pretty samey. But they're the only one? And even then, they're samey but with silly stuff. Ooh, 144. I might just take that. I could get a better price by waiting for the afternoon. But I could also get majorly screwed over by waiting for the afternoon. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna sell my turnips now, because that's actually a good price, and it's been weeks. So, you know, I gotta make profit where I can make it. And this is actually a decent little profit going on, so... Like, I would not want to see the kind of game that these people want. Because, like, it would be so boring. Like... And, like, one of the arguments this person made was using EDF 5 as the baseline of, like, well, yeah, like, the Ranger has a bunch of weapons in that game, but, like, the shotguns are clearly the best. It's like, yeah, they are. And from what I've heard, I haven't looked into it, I don't want to know, they've balanced out the Ranger. His shotguns are no longer his best weapon. They're a good alternative, but they're not his best weapon anymore. Funny that. It's almost like the games have progressively been shifting balance around. Want to know a fun fact? In EDF 4.1, Shadow of New Despair, the Ranger's best weapons were assault rifles and sniper rifles. There was no reason to use shotguns, period, in 4.1. They only became so good in 5 because Sandlot was trying to make people use the shotguns. Because no one was using the shotguns. So they were like, how do we get people using shotguns? Well, okay. The main problems in 4.1 was lack of range. So let's give the shotguns a little more range. And there was no shotgun that had a piercing shot, basically. That wasn't just a single slug. And at that point, sniper rifles are just still better. And piercing is good when you're fighting a lot of enemies. You either want piercing or high rate of fire. Assault rifles could have either piercing or high rate of fire. Some of them had both at the cost of a lot of damage. The main thing they didn't do with shotguns that made them so powerful in 5 was they didn't nerf the damage any. They just gave them piercing. So that's what made the shotguns so effective, was that the shotguns were dealing piercing damage. So you could wipe out an entire horde of ants with a single, click of your left mouse, rather than, having to wait a couple seconds for your assault rifle to do it. Like, that's how every EDF game has been. There has always been a best weapon, a best equipment loadout. And then the next game comes along and buffs the things that nobody used without making too many major changes to the things that everyone used in the previous game. Like, assault rifles are still perfectly valid and viable weapons in 5. They're not the best, no. The Breacher is. The Breacher shotgun. That is just the best gun for the Ranger. And then you probably want to pair that with either a sniper rifle or a missile launcher, depending on whether you feel like exploding things or just simply shooting things. Like, I honestly look forward to trying to figure out what is the most optimal weapons for each class in 6. That's going to be fun. I enjoy doing that. Especially because sometimes it can be really hard to tell. I'm actually really hoping that the Fencer's shoulder-mounted howitzers get a buff, because, like, those things are just fun. You're literally a walking tank. You have almost no mobility, and you have really high damage shot. It's just they take way too long to get their next shot off is the problem. I think I'm just gonna spend all of these bells on buying more turnips next week. Hey, Pete. Delivering to retail, eh? Watch him just be like, I got all these letters, I don't know who they go to, all of them, they're all a bit smudged, I can't read. I'm just gonna sell them to retail, I'm sure I'll be fine. Reese will take them, she'll dispose of them. It's like, just everyone's mail, just Pete just can't read. I do need to, like, clear out more space so I can actually buy more turnips in this. Because, like, the more turnips you can buy, the more you can make. I do have floor space I can just drop turnips on, so that's fine, but... But, like... It does really, like, annoy me when people just don't understand what makes games fun and think they do, and just either explain something that's completely unobtainable. That would be nice, but is completely unobtainable. Like, yeah, sure, it would be nice if EDF could look, hyper-realistic and, like, super cool and all that, while maintaining all of its mechanics, but I'd like to actually be able to play the game, thanks. And, like, I have a modern computer. If EDF were to just simply increase its graphics, so its graphical quality, I am not confident my computer could even run the game at 1080p. And, like, I know the response there from some people would be, oh, well, upscaling. It's like, no. No, I am not running the game at a lower resolution just to make it run. That's not gonna happen. if I have to lower the game's resolution, I'm not playing it. Like, simple as, like, I am not lowering a game's resolution and then making, you know, a program basically generate fake frames just to make me feel better about the experience. Like, do you know how sad that is when you hear people, like, again, playing Alan Wake 2 with a 4090 using frame generation and upscaling their 4K gameplay from 1080p to 4K with frame generation just so they can say 60 FPS in the corner. When in reality, they're only actually getting probably around 35, 40, maybe, even with the upscaling. That's so sad, given they spent probably close to $4,000 to $5,000 on their computer, and it can't even play a game at the resolution they want, at the frame rate that everyone should be demanding. Let's put 380,000 into my loan. And then I'm gonna put 400,000 away. I'll actually put 401891. Leave myself with exactly 20,000, which will then drop down to under 20,000 because I've yet to buy my coffee for today, but still. But, like, that to me is just so freaking sad. Like, I spent a good $1,500 on my computer. $1,500–$1,600. I feel that's a reasonable amount of money to spend to, you know, not need to upscale a game to play them at 1080p, given that's what my monitors are. They're both 1080p screens. And to play them at higher than 60 FPS. I always get the coffee. I always get the coffee blend. So many different flavors. It has to be good. That is fair. I would like my coffee, Brewster. Like my usual, my man. But, like, I could rant for a very long time about, like, upscaling and frame generation and all that crap. Because, like, it's so stupid. Like, you know what also upscales, technically? Just lowering the resolution on your monitor while playing full screen. It'll still stretch to the size of your monitor. Like, if I wanted to play, you know, let's say, I don't know, let's say I fire up, like, let's just use EDF. If I fire up EDF 6 and I'm like, you know, I'm not getting the resolution, I'm not getting the frame rate I want out of this, I'm not getting, like, past 60 FPS, I'm gonna just throw it into full screen or full screen windowed and just lower the resolution to 720p. I'm not gonna go in and turn on AMD's freaking upscaler, or even if I had an NVIDIA card, NVIDIA's upscaler, just to have the computer put in extra effort to lower the resolution for me. I'm just gonna lower it. Now, I'll be able to more than comfortably play that game above 60 FPS. I'm not saying that's a worry. But, like, if that was actually the case. Like, I don't understand the point of upscaling. And, like, that technology in of itself just screams laziness. Not only laziness on behalf of primarily Nvidia, because they're the ones pushing it the most. Because Nvidia doesn't want to actually improve their products, they just want to sell you the same product over and over again. But also laziness on behalf of game developers, because, like, you should not be making your game so unoptimized that upscaling is even a consideration on modern hardware. I could understand the point of upscaling and stuff if it was focused on older hardware. Like, if Nvidia's DLSS was heavily focused into working on, like, their 900 series and 10 series cards, then yeah, I could see that. That makes sense. Those are aging cards, they need help to keep up with modern standards, and prices have been ludicrous. But that's not what Nvidia's doing. Nvidia's focusing their DLSS on their latest 40 series cards, which realistically should be able to handle everything you want to do with them anyway. Like, I don't get it. If I have bought even a 4060, which is currently the lowest end 40 series card you can buy, I am fully expecting that card to be able to play every game that is released right now at 1080p at least 60 FPS, as long as it's paired with a decent CPU. Whoops. Like, that is my honest expectation. The 4060 cannot do that without upscaling. Because the 4060 isn't actually a new card. It's the 3060 again. Only the 3060 is arguably better because you can buy a 3060 with 12 gigabytes of VRAM and you can't buy a 4060 with 12 gigabytes of VRAM. They only come in 8 gigabyte flavor. The 4060 Ti comes in 16 gigabyte flavor. And performance-wise, has its butt kicked by the 3060 Ti as long as the 3060 Ti doesn't run out of VRAM, because it only has 8 gigs of VRAM. Like, literally, the 4060 Ti is only ever better when there's a VRAM limitation. Which even that in of itself... Like, I'm going on such a rant here, but like this just I need to do this rant, guys. Bear with me. Okay. So, think back, let's say 5-10 years. Actually, when did... No, I need to look this up because this aids my rant. Okay, let's look back 5 years to 2019 Metro Exodus. If you've never seen that game, go look at screenshots from it. It is a visually stunning game. It looks amazing. It was designed to work on graphics cards that have 2 to 4 gigabytes of VRAM, and it uses less than a gigabyte of VRAM. VRAM, for those who don't know, your video RAM, the memory on your graphics card, which is different from the memory on, like, in your computer. So, like, your graphics card has memory, and your computer also has memory. The video RAM, the stuff right on your graphics card, is usually a lot faster, and is usually reserved exclusively for game textures. If you don't have enough VRAM, the textures don't load very well. Now go look at a game like... I'm trying to think of a good example here. Hogwarts Legacy. That's a good one. You basically need 8 gigabytes of VRAM for that game. Look at screenshots of Hogwarts Legacy if you've never seen it before. And now be completely honest, which game looks better? My money's on Metro Exodus, looking visually better. Even just down to the textures looking better. Hogwarts Legacy uses more video RAM, uses more VRAM for worse textures because they refuse to compress their textures. They refuse to optimize their game. There is no good, legitimate reason why we should need video graphics cards with more than 8 gigabytes of VRAM right now. There is no good, legitimate reason for that. Except game developers have gotten lazy. Like, that is the only justification for it. Which is a thing where I'm, you know, in a way, I'm kind of defending Nvidia's insistence on 8 gigs of VRAM. Because realistically, you shouldn't need more than that. Game developers need to go relearn how to optimize their games. You shouldn't be running into games using more than even 6 gigs of VRAM. Given visually, they haven't really improved. If anything, they've gone backwards. And, like, I know there will be some people who would make the argument of, well, that's not entirely fair, because the Metro games have always looked good, and, like, they're not as big open maps as Hogwarts Legacy is and stuff. It's like, well, no, they're not. But it still doesn't change the fact that Hogwarts Legacy, at a minimum, uses, I think, almost 9 gigabytes of VRAM. And Metro Exodus can run on 1. It's using 9 times the amount of video memory for worse visuals. And don't even get me started on ray tracing. Just don't. Ray tracing is such a stupid thing. Like, yes, I want to completely annihilate my game's performance for a little bit of fancy lighting. And there are people who think ray tracing is going to be the future. That games are going to be entirely built doing ray tracing and they're going to run great while doing it. No, they're not. If they were going to, they would be doing it already. Like, quite simply, if games were going to run well while being ray traced, they would be at this point. Let's not forget, Nvidia has been pushing this ray tracing gimmick for, what, 6, 7 years now? How old is the RTX 2060? That is... I apologize, I'm stopping to look things up, but... Actually, it wouldn't even be the 2060. Ugh. It started 2018. So, 6 years they've been pushing this gimmick. And they started with the 2080 to really push the gimmick. So explain to me where it is. Where's this good ray tracing performance? An RTX 4090 still loses well over, close to or over half of its performance when you turn on ray tracing. And the argument always is, well, the game wasn't designed from the ground up to be only ray tracing. It's like, it's a toggle. It turns off the normal lighting and turns on ray tracing. you can't get more built for ray tracing than that, other than completely excluding everything that can't do ray tracing. Which, shock of all shocks to the, the ray tracing fanboys, that's the majority of people. The second most popular graphics card, according to Steam's dataset, at over 5% usage, is the GTX 1650. That card can't ray trace. That card... I mean, let's be real. The 1650 isn't horrible. It's outdated. Like, even Nvidia hedged their bets on ray tracing. If it wasn't for the diehard Nvidia fanboys, they probably wouldn't even be that big into ray tracing at this point. Because let's not forget, at the same time they were releasing the 20 series cards, they also released their small handful of 16 series cards. Basically to see, do people actually want ray tracing? Do they actually want this stuff? And the answer was, well, it was too late in the cycle. People already had upgraded. But a lot of people still bought 1660 Supers, 1660 Ti's, because they were more than sufficient graphics cards. They couldn't do ray tracing, no, but they could do everything else you wanted them to do. And they didn't have the silly gimmick weighing them down and increasing their price, and people bought them. But, like, I'm going to go back to my Metro example, just to, like, really illustrate something here. Of, like, the optimal, the recommended maximum spec cards is a GeForce RTX 2060. A 6GB VRAM graphics card. Their minimum spec is a GTX 1050, which I believe is a 4GB card, or a GTX 670, which, if I remember correctly, is a 2GB card. Yes, it is. Like, the game can run, and this is when minimum requirements was still, you know, this was back when minimum requirements was still, you could run the game at reduced settings and still get 60 FPS. It wasn't, it isn't like modern games where you look at their minimum spec and it's like, okay, this minimum requirement is for running the game either upscaled or at 720p, and it's to get 30 FPS. Like, quite literally, I'm pretty sure Hogwarts Legacy does that. Let me actually double check that. Oh, it doesn't. Which is the game I saw recently that did that? Right, it was Baldur's Gate 3. That was the game. So at the bottom of the Baldur's Gate spec sheet, or it doesn't. It used to. Was it not Baldur's Gate? I could swear it was. Because it's a game someone I know was complaining that they couldn't play, and they were within the spec. The minimum spec, but they were like, oh, it just doesn't work. I could swear those games did that, but they might have just been removed at this point. Either way, like, there's a lot of games where it's like, yeah, you can't actually, like... You can't actually run this game at the settings that we say you can. or with the spec we say you can without lowering the settings to 1080p, not 1080p, like lower than 1080p, and like, I apologize, I was just standing around for that. Like I said, I need this rant. I know that probably sounds stupid, but like, this is a rant that has been just bubbling in me for a while now, and having sold our turnips, like, that frees me up to just have that rant, and like, I'm feeling a lot better now. Like, you guys will have to let me know what you guys think of this stuff, but like, just know no one's gonna be able to change my mind on like, games are getting worse in optimization, and like, I love how this started as me complaining about someone not understanding the fun of EDF. Yeah. I want to know, I have confirmed that my CPU is starting to degrade a little. Though, I say that, I don't know if it's actually my CPU degrading, or if it is a motherboard setting just being wonky, or I don't know. I don't really want to mess with my BIOS to find out. But what I do know is what I may end up doing, because it'll all depend on how my CPU behaves in the coming months. My ultimate goal is going to basically be to migrate onto AM5. To get off of Intel onto AMD. They're more reliable for the time being, at least. I'm kind of waiting to see what the prices and performance of the 9000 series Ryzen CPUs are to really fully make that decision, because like, if the 9600X can match my 13600K in gaming performance, but is a little slower while rendering videos, I'll take that. The 7600X doesn't do that currently. It's worse in gaming and worse in production. What I may end up doing, though, because this upgrade is only going to be about $500, which is a lot of money, but it's not the $800 to $900 that getting onto AM5 is going to be. My motherboard, power supply, everything can handle a 12900. The 12900 is stable. It has no stability problems and is better in some games than my 13600 is. The bonus there as well is I can actually get a K, like a regular K, not a KF skewed CPU, so I'll have integrated graphics again, which will also help speed up production workloads, because I can use settings that will make use of the integrated graphics to boost production. So basically, that would probably be the most production-oriented upgrade I could do. My gaming performance will suffer a little bit unless I go for the KS, which I can afford, and it would still be cheaper than going on to AM5. That is a lot of money, though, for a 12th gen part when 15th gen is coming out soon. And yeah, but at least it would get me onto a stable part, and I could continue using my motherboard and RAM. I wouldn't need to replace them. I would only have to replace the CPU. And then I could then, like, sell my CPU on, like, Facebook Marketplace or something for, like, I don't know, $300 and get some money back. I wouldn't sell it for, like, the 400-ish it goes for, you know, on Newegg, because I have been using it, and it does seem to be degrading, but I don't know for sure. But, you know, I could get some of my money back at least, and that would also lessen the blow of, buying the 12900 KS. Like, I am really looking into my options for getting off of 13th gen Intel. I really want to just get off Intel in general. I've already gotten off of the Nvidia titty. I want to get off the Intel titty too. I really wish there was other competitors, because AMD isn't perfect. Let's be real. Between Intel, Nvidia, and AMD, it's literally the same as the console manufacturers. I don't like Sony. I don't like Microsoft. I'm not even the biggest fan of Nintendo, but Nintendo's the best of the three of them, so I have a Switch sitting right there instead of an Xbox or PlayStation. You know, that's where I'm at. Like, all three of them do things I don't like, but Nintendo does the least. You know, when it comes to the, manufacturers of computer components, like, AMD does the least things I don't like. That's not to say I'm not upset with some of the things AMD does. Like, for any new consumer, like, if any of you out there are, like, looking to build a new computer and you're watching 46 minutes into an Animal Crossing video, you're not expecting this advice, but hey, you're getting it. Ignore the AM5 8000 series CPUs. They're not an upgrade over the 7000 series. They really should have been named the 6000 series. That would have firmly placed them where they belong as lesser than the 7th gen, or the 7000 series AMD CPUs. Quite simply, them being named 8000 is confusing, misleading, and kind of scummy. Especially where they're cheaper than the 7th, so you look at them and be like, well, the 7s. So you look at them and you're like, oh, these say 8. They're cheaper. They've got to be better, right? No, they're not. They're worse. The only 8000 series CPUs you should be looking into getting, if you really want them, is the 8000G CPUs. Because those have better integrated graphics than the standard 7000 series. Ignore the 8000Fs. They're the 8000s without any integrated graphics at all. They are just bad. At the very least with the Gs, you can make an argument that you could buy that CPU and then not necessarily need a graphics card. Or you could probably, like, if you were looking to play, like, Counter-Strike, you could buy, like, an 8600G and get by just fine. But that's really, you have to be looking for low power, low graphic fidelity games, like, looking to play older games and stuff like that. Like, that would be fine. Play the basic MMOs. But if you're looking to build, like, a proper computer and you're buying a graphics card, you don't need an integrated graphics CPU unless you're doing production workloads. And even then, the entirety of the 7000 series has integrated graphics built in anyway, if you really want that backup. So if you're looking at the 8600G, just buy an 7600X. Or just 7600 if it's cheaper in your area. They're functionally the same CPU. The non-X and X versions of the 7000 series are functionally the same. So, the non-X just come with a CPU cooler and run at slightly low power limits, but you can basically remove those power limits and get the exact same performance out of them. Only they come with a cooler. It's kind of cool. I'm going to stop rambling now because this is going on almost 50 minutes. Thank you all very much for watching, and hopefully I shall see you back here tomorrow for more Animal Crossing New Leaf Welcome Amiibo, and I hope you enjoy my Earth Defense Force 6 stream if you tune in for it. So, hopefully I'll see you back here tomorrow. See you all then.